All right, can everybody see my screen? Okay, good. Hello, everybody. We are using the 1-2-3 solution, and our goal is addressing palm oil company infringements on Indigenous rights in the Bang Kayang Regency through the introduction of cell phones. We are Human Rights Watch. We are a non-governmental organization looking at human rights violations around the world. We have previous research looking at how the Orang, Rimba, and Aban people in West Kalimantan have been affected by the palm oil industry. Indigenous communities are highly affected by the palm oil industry. There's also a lack of government consulting with these communities, although they're being highly affected and highly exploited. There are also issues beyond deforestation, such as soil erosion and damaging pesticides. However, it's hard to verify these claims due to lack of transparent data.
So the problem. One, the palm oil industry and the Indonesian government lack transparency in relation to their data management. Second, we are currently relying on word of mouth from the Orang, Rimba, and Aban people on the Bacanyang Regency, and the government has actually combated these claims because they're word of mouth, not specific data. And third, current tracking technology lacks reliability and a timely response. Now, the 1-2-3 solution. $1 million, 20,000 phones, 3 community-owned cellular networks, leading to a faster, cheaper, and more personable form of observational data collection, therefore faster analysis and production of GIS maps that can lead to aggressive and impactful action.
Yeah, so there are currently ways of finding out about the loss of forest and indigenous people's land due to palm oil farming. However, the data is often difficult to access in a timely manner. The ability to track deforestation and palm oil plantations is often too late to protect the forests from being deforested and the indigenous people from having their land infringed on. Landsat-8, a satellite by NASA and the US Geological Survey, is one of the publicly available and free ways to get images of the Earth's surface and thermal imaging. However, the resolution of these imaging and thermal sensors is not as high a quality or as detailed as we'd like it to be. Furthermore, Landsat's orbit is such that it only focuses on the same area of the world every 16 days. In over 2 weeks of time, multiple factors in an area could easily change and efforts to stop illegal plantations could be hindered. Now, there are other private satellites that provide higher quality imaging and could be trained on the same location without the same delay, but those can be pricey and won't show the personalized images and videos from the ground level that we're hoping for.
Now, in response to that background technology, here's what we're proposing. We are proposing camera phone distribution, specifically 20,000 camera phones distributed to later community displaced populations in sedentary native areas. In regards to this distribution, we want to establish full transparency on data collection practices. This means that we are ensuring individual data privacy, and we are only sharing aggregated data with our partners and organizations. Now, being proactive, the 4 benefits of providing phones. First of all, users can take phones and make videos of the effects. Second, we can track cell phone location. Third, we can quickly send out surveys through phone, either through call or text. And fourth, phones improve the quality of life. Now, data collection, faster, cheaper, and more personable forms of open source data. To do this, we want to implement community-owned cellular networks. In connection to that, we want to establish international and we want to track international mobile station equipment identity numbers. These numbers help us in tracking the camera phones and specifically their location. Moreover, in order to add more data and provide a deeper pool, we are also going to be tracking SMS messaging during the workday. Lastly, we're going to be tracking image and their location as well. So we are focused on reliable, efficient, and rapid locational data collection. So why CCNs instead of big providers? Well, first of all, they're community managed and rely on that. Second, they're regional engagement. They provide a lot of engagement with the regional area and focus on that internal community. And lastly, they are affordable and reliable. Now, thinking through the total coverage of what these CCNs and these 20,000 phones could do, well, first of all, they would be able to cover 1,385 miles based on our calculations, and this is 3 CCNs with a 21-mile radius. Now, this means that there's 20,000 and 35,000 SIM cards connected, so 20,000 to 35,000 SIM cards connected.
So the Bang Kayang Regency area of the West Kalimantan province has a low standard of living, and a majority of the rural population works for palm oil plantations. Most of these palm oil farm workers live below the poverty line. And while 55% of rural Indonesians own a phone, that means roughly 45% don't. By expanding the usage of phones among the population, we will be able to show, we'll be able to allow them to better communicate with each other and impact broader change.
So we want to make it clear that a big point of our presentation is focusing on Indigenous rights. 19 to 25% of Indonesia's population is Indigenous, and these Indigenous people depend highly on the land for farming other crops such as rice and making products such as baskets. We're focusing specifically on the Aban and Orang Rimba people in this area, and we also see that women are primarily affected. There's also a lack of government data. There has been something called the One Map Initiative to address land disputes, because there are many palm oil companies and there are many tribes in this area. However, there have been concerns about whether the map is actually being inclusive of Indigenous people. It's also hard to see the effects of palm oil in addition to the lack of government transparency, because 1/5 of it is operating illegally. Indigenous people are also prone to other issues such as facing violence. That means journalists and NGOs are relying on word of mouth, old and spotty data. We also have seen some positive impacts from the introduction of phones in rural communities. Actually, a William and Mary study from the Global Research Institute found that providing mobile phones to Tanzanian women significantly improved their lives and socioeconomic mobility. There's a strong emphasis on women's empowerment. For example, they can receive healthcare reminders, mobile banking, and broader communications means ensuring more personal safety. We're also going to offer a $100 monthly raffle when they respond to our survey questions as an incentive to respond. These questions will be through SMS and through phone call. And some example questions are, have you noticed deforestation? Have you noticed plantation growth? And are you comfortable drinking from your nearest water source? In order to quantify the impact on Indigenous people, especially Indigenous women, we're going to look at our survey data. This information will be going to several places. So first, we want to acknowledge the benefits of our information, and it is obtaining local, on-the-ground, personalized information that will benefit others in the process. Our GIS mapping system will allow us to compare to past established maps, look at changes over time, and establish credible patterns. Our survey results, including through images and videos, will provide additional data. People will submit their images and videos through a Mapillary website, which includes the location with their image or video. We also want to ensure that we're being ethical by obtaining informed consent. And to do that, we're going to work with local leaders in the area to make sure that it is in the language that the Indigenous people can understand. This information will go to NGOs like us, Human Rights Watch, media organizations like the Jakarta Post, and environmental organizations like the Indonesia Forum for the Environment.
Now let's go over our budget. 20,000 phones, 20,000 SIM cards, 15,000 additional SIM cards for those who already own phones in these regional areas, 20,000 solar chargers, 3 community-owned networks, a monthly 100 raffle for answering your survey questions, and 10 research interns with a $2,000 yearly stipend. Now let's recap implementation and let's talk about our milestones. First of all, we are giving phones to workers and Indigenous people that are displaced and sedentary. This is in Berjangkang near Galwabeg, and we are very prominent about working with local leaders. We understand that in order to fix these issues, they need to be fixed from a community perspective and decentralized role. Second, establishment of physical community-owned cellular networks. This is not only a temporary impact, but long-term, since these communities are able to use these networks and for the long-term usage from economical rebuilding to just daily family life. So third, data collection. By using EMI, SMS, and image locational tracking, we want to expand the data that is on the personal ground level area. So in order to do this, we're going to be scrambling data. And again, we are going to be having informed consent based on local leaders and their communication to us. So our milestones: in 6 months, we want 12,000 phones and 2 towers implemented already. By the 1-year mark, we want all 20,000 phones and the 3rd tower implemented. Overall, to make impact happen, we want to make impact happen. So this means ecological projections, social political reform, and economic uplifting. Thank you. Therefore, we believe that our data system and collection will help us achieve these goals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, judges, you have 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask the first question and then turn it over to my colleagues. I am you've really laid out clearly how this first year would work, but I'm interested in what sustainability looks like over the longer term, specifically in terms of these community operated cell phone networks. How will those continue to operate? Who will maintain them? And how will they cover the costs of that into the future?
So we know that long-term in continental African regions, as well as Indonesia themselves, these CCNs have already been established and are being worked through. So we know that there's already programs that have allowed from international ministers to just trained professionals on the ground that are able to manage and operate these facilities 5 years later. So we have a 5-year scope of impact. Moreover, the second year of our program is more of the data collection area of it. Once these are established, we're going to be able to hopefully get monthly data influxes and able to compare them with GIS mapping systems. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Sarah, would you like to jump in?
Why did you pick this particular region? What made it interesting to you? And
yeah, so I can answer that question. So as Human Rights Watch, we have previous research in this area. We're also looking at a specific palm oil harvesting company in this area. I believe it's called PT.
It's at Lipoli, PT at Lipoli, something like that specifically.
Yeah. So this is a specific area that we've already previously researched and noticed that we're lacking data here, and we're really relying on word of mouth. And it's hard to hold them accountable for these human rights violations and indigenous land violations because we're relying on word of mouth in this area.
I have a question. So I like the use of cell phones here, and I think it can collect a lot of data. I'm mildly concerned about the amount of tracking that you're going to do and how that might concern people that, well, if I'm sending a text message to my friend down the street, it's getting tracked.
Yeah.
So how do you minimize that concern?
So we are being completely clear that individual data is not being shared to anyone. In fact, all of that data is going to be aggregated in our mapping systems and will only be, even if it's not mapped, will only be provided in an aggregated form. So there is no individual data other than what we have access to as an NGO that will be provided to any other organization, whether the government, media sites, or ecological organizations.
And then
follow-up. Sorry, go ahead, Rose.
No, you go ahead if you have a follow-up.
Oh, that follow-up is just, so is Human Rights Watch really in the business of collecting or holding or being capable of holding this type of information in a private, secure way over a significant period of time?
I believe so. We have done previous information tracking before and previous satellite imagery. For example, a lot of the satellite imagery we're looking at actually came from Human Rights Watch. So I do believe we have the capacity because we have stored similar data in the past.
And moreover, we have a lot of partners in the international development community that perhaps have a stronger focus on that. And I'm sure that we would be able to work together with them, and as well as we pitch our idea to them, they can see what can be done and perhaps collaborate in that fashion.
And in particular to palm oil, where is the impact on minimizing the human rights violations around palm oil?
Yeah, so something we really wanted to focus on was transparency, especially with the indigenous communities. We see a huge lack of recognition and transparency from the government. And I think it's also powerful as a third-party NGO that we can have this sort of insight. So something we want to do is by using this information, giving it to media sources, using it for reports, and it's really about holding them accountable.
Yeah, and onto that, we have analyzed that you see on satellite system that only provides yearly reports. Rather, we are hoping that we can provide 6-month reports that are actually going to be able to share with these governments, with those organizations, and provide very aggressive action towards deforestation, water quality, in general, just quality of life problems.
Do you foresee this having any more sort of like quick reaction kind of applications, or is this just like a monthly survey?
I would argue that one of the quick reactions we're going to see is immediate improvement in people's lives regarding these cell phones. The study that I mentioned from the GRI, they did see pretty quick improvement in women's lives. I believe that was a 2-month study when they first looked at the data. So I think that will be one of the immediate impacts we see.
I was more thinking about in relation to how the deforestation and the issues you're actually dealing with here.
To that question, I don't believe that we would see any initial impact until the reports are made. So until we're able to actually manage that data, find a quantifiable way of sharing it with the organizations. However, this plan would provide a lot of change the following year. So yes, with complete full transparency, we don't see a lot of impact in this first year other than societal impact. However, we do see a lot of potential growth and impact in the following year. So in the regards to sustainability, we really see that's where we have impact and management.
Okay.
So I think this concludes time for our questioning section, but great presentation.
Thank you.
Can I just confirm your team name really quick?
Yes, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, thank you so much.
We are the 1, 2, 3 solution.
That's very quantitative. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Got the most common password or whatever it is.